Let me just begin, though, by making a few basic observations just before we launch into this first aspect. And that is, notice there in the opening verse, "So I, Peter, the apostle, exhort the elders among you." Stop there for a moment. Now, this is actually very significant because if you turn to chapter 1, verse 1, who is he writing to? Well, he's not just writing to one church. He's writing to those in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, which basically covers a geographical area over 115% the size of New Zealand. So there's a lot of churches in that region. And yet, in every one of those churches, their form of leadership was elders, plural. That's been God's way from the beginning. He doesn't say the churches who have elders, as though there were some that did and some that didn't. He doesn't say to the elder at each church, as though there was only one sole pastorate at each church. No, he says elders, without qualification. And in fact, if you look in the New Testament, the only form of church leadership is a plurality of God-ordained, biblically qualified men called elders or overseers or leaders or shepherds. And you'll never see churches run by majority opinion, by the congregation, by a single pastor. It's always a plurality of elders. In fact, you look at apostles, when they established the church in Acts 14:23, in every church they established elders, plural. When the apostolic era came to a close, eldership emerged as the highest level of local church leadership. A second observation, these are very basic here, is that elders, pastors, and overseers are the same office. You can see the words used synonymously here. He's addressing elders. I exhort the elders among you. Look down at verse 2. He says, then shepherd the flock. It translates the same word found elsewhere as pastor. Pastor is just a fancy word for a shepherd. And so he says, elders, pastor the flock. And he says, exercising oversight, which is the term translated elsewhere as overseer. So you have pastor / overseer / elder, all referring to the same office. The terms are just simply different ways of identifying the same role. They just highlight different features. Elders, the term emphasizes their spiritual maturity and wisdom. Overseer emphasizes their leading and administrative role. And pastor emphasizes their overall responsibility, which we'll look at. And it's important that we understand this, because otherwise what we're going to start doing is attributing different roles to the different names. So we might think, oh, that's the pastor, he does that, and that's the elder, he does that. No, they're one and the same. All right? And there's a third basic observation, and that is all the elder duties are summed up in this one overarching command by Peter when he says, shepherd the flock of God. Right there. That's it. That sums it up right there. But you got to think of a shepherd in the Middle East of the first century, and not to contemporary shepherds that you see here in New Zealand. Because in the first century, shepherds, they had four main roles: to lead, to feed, to guard, and to care for the flock. And those are the same four roles and responsibilities that pastors have. And this